Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. I've got another video for you. We're going to talk about some of the best draft day values that there are for your season-long leagues. Whether you're playing transactional fantasy with your friends and family, or whether you're playing in some of these massive best ball tournaments that are out there right now, whether it's on DraftKings or Underdog Fantasy or wherever it is that you like to play, I've got some players that I think are going in the top 10, 11 rounds that are showing a little bit of value versus their ADP. I believe that these guys can either provide you a profit on their current average draft position, or they can absolutely smash it, putting you in a really great spot to get some value in the rounds in front of them and layer in with these guys behind them, which allows you to put yourself in the best position to have a great start to your fantasy season, right? If you're in a transactional league, weeks 1 through 4, you're not really relying on the waiver wire as much as you are later in the season. And if you're in best ball, these are guys that can really carry you and give you the best type of stacks, upside, week to week performance, or whatever it is that you're looking for. So if you're new to the channel, thank you for coming. Appreciate you guys. If you drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, make sure that you ring that notifications bell so you get an inbox notice every time that I publish new content. And I do publish an awful lot of NFL, fantasy football, daily fantasy content on this channel. During the NFL season, it's going to come at you with like between, I don't know, 7 to 10 videos a week is what I currently have planned. I don't know how I'm going to pull it off from an editing perspective. And from a streaming perspective, every one of these videos is recorded live on twitch.tv. There's a link down below to my stream. Come by, drop a follow on that channel and see us live. I'd love to get to know you. The easiest way is I do a lot of interaction with the chat around recording these videos. So it's harder for me to get to know you in the replies down below, but much easier for me to get to know about you and interact. You can ask me questions, I answer them. We just talk and banter for a few hours every single day during NFL season over on Twitch, and we export them to here for your guys on demand viewing. So thank you for being here once again, and let's get to this year's list. Number 1 for me is Cam Newton. There aren't going to be a lot of quarterbacks on this list, and I know that we've got Ben Roethlisberger as the cover boy, but you'll understand why in just a minute. I do think that Ben Roethlisberger is a very good value, but he's going later than kind of the theme that I wanted to go with here. He's going in the 13th, 14th rounds. Definitely a great value in my opinion. So is somebody like Jared Goff, who I think has a big bounce back this season. He was, let's say he needs some regression to the mean, but in a good way, throwing more touchdown passes this year than he threw last year. They were kind of out of ratio last year, and he's got some really good targets with Cooper Kupp, Woods, Higbee, who if you've watched the other videos on this channel, you know that I'm particularly high on Tyler Higbee. So Ben Roethlisberger, Jared Goff, very good quarterback values, but they fall outside of the criteria for my video that I wanted to put together. Top 10, 11 round picks. Cam Newton right now going in the 10th or 11th rounds. Every season that Cam Newton has been healthy, he has been a QB 5 or better. Now you have him on a Patriots offense that still has some weapons around him, whether it's Edelman, whether it's N'Keal Harry, the tight ends that they have, James White, a great pass-catching option out of the backfield. And earlier in his career, Cam Newton was somebody who never really utilized a running back. You know, he just didn't throw the ball to his running backs. All that changed when he had a great pass-catching back and a scheme to incorporate that pass-catching back with Christian McCaffrey. And now he's got James White, who's probably going to see 35 to 40% of the snaps, as he does every single season, get you 6 to 8 targets a game. That's 6 easy catches. Newton still has his ability with his legs, should be a very stark option, like a great option for them around the goal line, as he's always been inside the 5, giving you a good solid base with rushing yards and the potential for rushing touchdowns. And I think we're going to get about 20 to 25 touchdowns passing from him this season. More than enough to pay off where he's being drafted as like the QB 15 or QB 16 right now in drafts. He should be in the top 12. He should be drafted as a QB 1. He isn't. So that for me makes him one of the better values right now. As I said about Ben Roethlisberger, him being back and healthy automatically improves this offense. We saw a drastic difference with that Steelers offense in 2019 once Ben left with his surgery that he needed to get. James Conner fell off the board for good reason, right? If that offense is terrible, the running back is going to play in negative game scripts. They're going to have to throw it. Now, Conner is good out of the backfield, but he's not somebody that I really want to go after that much. He's not going to see like 90 or 100 catches. It's good in PPR leagues that he can catch the ball, but it's not like he's a Christian McCaffrey, a Miles Sanders. He's not a James White who's going to catch it all the time. He needs positive game scripts. He needs the chains to be moved. He needs to be inside the 5-yard line. And with Ben Roethlisberger back, and this offense now, in my opinion, being able to actually move the ball a lot better than they had before with playmakers at every position, James Conner gets a big bump for me, currently being drafted in the early 3rd round. I'm personally, if I need an RB2 in the late 2nd round, I'm not shying away from reaching about 5-6 picks to get me a James Conner there, for the simple fact that for me, he's the last viable running back in the tier that he's at. So I'm drafting him ahead of his current ADP, which is somewhere around the 29, 30 on pretty much every site. Juju Smith-Schuster, sticking with that Steelers offense. Everybody projected that he was going to have this massive breakout last season, following the season where he was the number 2 guy behind Antonio Brown with 166 targets in 2018. Ben goes down. He gets 70 targets on the course of the season, only played 12 games. Now with Ben back, he is going to feast once again. 150 plus targets, most certainly on the table. He is great in the end zone. He's great between the 20s. He is an absolutely beast deep threat, and they can give him the ball at the short and intermediate routes. Juju Smith-Schuster is definitely somebody that you should be targeting. He has a 3rd round ADP. I think that you should be willing, if you're going to go with a running back and chill, a bell cow and chill mode, like if you get like the number 1 through number 4 pick and you take a running back, I'm not against taking Juju Smith-Schuster in the 2nd round or waiting for him to fall to you in the early 3rd and picking him earlier than ADP. He's somebody that I have a lot of shares of this year when I fall in those draft slots. So too many people, in my opinion, are going to focus on last year's numbers as opposed to focusing on the numbers from 2 years ago. We need an actual functioning quarterback throwing him the ball. Moving on to our next guy, Terry McLaurin. I've mentioned him in numerous videos so far. Mid 4th round ADP. You can draft him if you go 2 running backs in the first 2 rounds. Running back. You take a stud wide receiver in the 3rd. You can still get Terry McLaurin as your wide receiver 2. If you go hyper fragile and draft 3 running backs, I have no issues with Terry McLaurin as my wide receiver 1 on teams like that. His volume should drastically increase this year. 1, because the pace of play for Washington should increase in 2020 versus 2019. They played ridiculously slow last year, and they're going to be once again in a lot of negative game scripts, which is going to force them to have to throw and keep their foot on the gas. McLaurin could see between 120 and 140 targets because there's nobody else to throw to. Fantastic deep threat, great underneath in the short and intermediate range as well. Quarterback play, we don't know if it's going to be Haskins, but I love quarterbacks going to their 2nd year versus when they're playing as rookies, or if Alex Smith is going to make a miraculous comeback and get all the way back onto the field. Obviously, a great head on Alex Smith. We'll see if the leg can hold up. I'm hoping for the best for him. But the situation with either at QB still leads me to Terry McLaurin being the guy who should see a massive uptick in volume, is extremely explosive, and based on where he's being drafted right now in the mid 4th, there aren't that many better options in both in terms of floor and ceiling. Moving to the next couple of rounds, the 5th or 6th rounds, the ADP for Will Fuller, depending on where and when you're drafting, he's going anywhere from the mid 5th to the mid 6th. So how sharp your draft is, if you're drafting in a draft room, if it's a best ball draft, let's say on Underdog or DraftKings, and you recognize a lot of the names in that draft, you know that these are a couple of sharp guys, he's probably going to go in the 5th round of those drafts as somebody's going to reach to try and get him. If you're playing your friends and family league, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be making the argument that, hey, Will Fuller never makes it through a season healthy. And they're not wrong, right? He's been injured a lot in his career. He's been extremely unlucky in terms of that. But there's no DeAndre Hopkins in Houston this year. They replaced him with Brandon Cooks. They still have a couple of guys behind him with Kenny Stills and Randall Cobb. But Will Fuller should be somebody who garners 7 to 9 targets a week, as well as Brandon Cooks, who could get between 6 and 9 targets a week. From an extremely fantasy-friendly quarterback, their defense is god-awful. They're one of the 5 worst projectable defenses in the league, which means that they're going to have to throw it a ton in every game, which is going to keep the floor for somebody like Will Fuller really high in terms of targets, because they should have to throw it 35 to 50 times every game. If that is the case and they have to throw it that many times, Will Fuller's floor becomes extremely high. His ceiling is ever present with his game-breaking over-the-top speed and pass-catching ability. Moving to tight end, Zach Ertz. What does Zach Ertz have to do to be drafted among the elite tight ends? Because he was a couple of years ago. His production hasn't dipped. 90 catches and almost 1,000 yards last season. And he's going right now in like, where is he being drafted? The 4th round as the tight end 3 or tight end 4 with him and Mark Andrews currently. If you're a premium tight end drafter, and there's arguments on both sides of that, right? You don't need to draft a premium tight end as they don't really show up in best ball win rates all that much. No tight end makes you win a league as much as other positions. Wins over replacement by position. Tight end isn't all that valuable. But I love the value that we're getting on Zach Ertz here in the 4th round as opposed to maybe Kittle and Kelsey in the early 2nd round. You can still get stud players in those ranges and they'll come back with a player who statistically would not shock me if he had the same amount of points per game as somebody like Kelsey or Kittle. But you're getting a 2-round value on him versus those other 2 guys. Zach Ertz, very viable, very easy to pair in best ball too with Carson Wentz. Getting Jalen Reagor or Djax later gives you a double or a triple stack with your quarterback. Absolutely love Ertz for best ball, especially building him in with Philly stacks. Now, tight end is a very deep position, so there are arguments to not going premium tight end, as there are plenty of tight ends being drafted later than the 10th round who could end up being a tight end 5 on the season. Right now, Mike Gesicki is going in the 12th round, being drafted as the 15th tight end off the board on average. And who else is there to catch the ball in Miami? I absolutely love him if Fitzmagic is the quarterback. I don't know what the case is going to be if Tua is the guy. We'll find out. I don't hate it, obviously. Miami is still going to be playing from behind a lot. Yes, they are improved on defense, but they are still also, based on Mike Clay's unit grades, one of the 6 worst defenses graded out in terms of talent on the season. Now, maybe they have this great scheme and they're going to do much better defensively, but it's not that hard to do much better defensively than you were last year in one of the worst defenses in the history of football and in a shootout every single week. There's a very distinct path to targets for Mike Gesicki right now. Not out of the realm of possibility to think that over the first 6 weeks of the season that he could be one of the top 5 tight ends in fantasy. And that may be all you need to be a great draft day value for him, as, like I said, there's plenty of other tight ends that are great at this range. We've already spoken about Jarwin, who's going in the far later than him. I think he's the tight end 21. Eric Ebron, the tight end 22. Herndon is somebody who I am personally attached to. I think he's great in late round stacks. But in terms of going with guys that are not being drafted as tight end 1s, 15th tight end off the board, Mike Gesicki is your guy in the top 11 rounds to get you a whole lot of targets, 6, 7, 8 targets from a position where not a lot of guys really garner that much attention from their quarterbacks. Thank you guys for joining. Again, please drop a like on the video. Leave me who your best draft day values are in the replies down below. And look out for the next video, which will be popping up right here in just a couple of seconds. Bye.
He's a legend.